Let me give you an introduction to strategic management. Absolutely, this is what we will be discussing in today's presentations. So, definition of strategy. Remember, strategy is nothing but a definitive directions, plan, probably for of an organizations over a longer horizons. Remember, this is always kept into mind to ensure that the company is going to take advantages of the environmental changes as on when it happens. So it is going to configure its plan based on its own strength. The strength are your resources, your competencies, with the aim of fulfilling the expectations of everyone, each of the stakeholders. So essentially, strategy is a long-term plan so that it benefits its stakeholders with the achievement of the objective that has been taken care of. Right. So decisions, strategic decisions are about everything on long term. The scope of an organization activities as on when on basis, gaining advantages over competitors, thereby addressing change in the business environment, building on resources and competencies, capabilities. This is what we are looking as far as strategic decisions are all about it. It is longer term. The scope of the organization activities are huge and immense, gaining advantages over the competitor, addressing changes in the business environment, building on resources, competencies, capabilities, values, and expectation. Therefore, they're likely to be very complex in nature. Yes, true. Why? Because 100 years back, the environment, the economic environment, the living standards were not as same as we are right now experiencing. And believe me, 100 years hence, this will also look very uncomfortable life that we are leading, and probably things would have changed dramatically altogether. So things are complex in nature. When we are planning for ahead, uh, we need to plan for all the changes that the environment will undergo. So it is a complexity is made of a situation of which is very uncertainty. Look at 100 years back, what state of affairs that we were working into it or living into, and look 100 years hence. Can you predict what we will be looking, experiencing, and so on and so forth? Affect operational decisions, require integrated approach both inside and outside an organization, and involves considerable change. This is what decisions are all about it, all about the longest term, the advantages over the competitor, the business environment. And because of this, they have to be very complex in natures, will be affecting the operational decisions and so on and so forth. Levels of strategies. How do we go around with the levels of strategies? Let us understand the corporate level. It is concerned with overall purpose and scope of the organizations, how its values will be added to different parts of a business in an organization, the case in hand as possible as there. So corporate level strategy is the basis for other strategic decision making capacity that comes around it. Definitely, yes. We will be talking about the large scale decisions. We will be talking about what is the expectation of the stakeholders. And remember, every stakeholders would have different expectations, right from shareholders to the vendors, right from vendors to the end customers, right from the end customers to the government as such. So business levels strategies, what we go around it, it is all about the complete successfulness in a particular business. Now, how do you have a competitive advantages that over the customers that can be achieved upon it? Strategic decisions are here related with the strategic business unit. Thereby, remember, SBU is a unit of an organization for making strategies in the first place, usefulness. So we have the corporate strategies, we have the business level strategies, and finally we have the operational strategies. Remember, operational strategies are a day-to-day activities that needs to be manned. It is concerned with how a component of an organization deliver effectively the corporate and the business level strategies in terms of resources, process, and people as the case might be. Let us understand the vocabulary of the strategies terms is mission. We are looking at overriding purpose in line with the values of expectation of the stakeholder. Be healthy and fit as the case might be. Vision or strategic intent is desired future state, the aspirations of the organization with the passage of time. How do we go around it? To run the London Marathon? Yes, definitely yes. How do we go about it to run the London Marathon? Goals to general statement of our aim or purposes. Lose weight, strengthen muscles, as the case might be. We talk about the goals, the general statement of the purpose, objectives, maybe definitions, maybe quantification as far as possible. In fact, more precise statement would love to be your on a personal example. Let's say lose 5 kilos by such and such time. Probably, we can always say so. In terms of an organization, the vocabulary of strategies, of capabilities, resources, activity, process, something will be unique. On on the personal example, I can have be fit, absolutely fit, and absolutely have the strength what a person would be having at the prime of their youth. If you can maintain this, if you can achieve that, why not? So that is what we are talking about it. Strategies are always longer term for an organization. And for a personal example, would be on a day-to-day basis, on a let's say exercise regularly, compete in marathons locally, stick to appropriate diets, and so on and so forth. So we have the business models, we have the controls that comes around it every now and then. The vision, mission, the goals, the objective, the strategic capabilities, as the case might be. This is which is of prime importance. Let's say the vocabulary of strategies as in mission, which is absolutely the undercurrent in your thought process, which will lead it to achieving a particular objective. Now, vision is a desire state. Remember, this is what an overriding purpose. It is the fuel that fires your belly. Vision is the actual objective that you want to achieve in due courses of time. Then comes the goal. What is the objective? Yes, the bare fact when we have a broad vision is always broad in nature. Goals are small in nature. Mission is a way to achieve those goals and the vision thereby. Objectives, quantification or more precise statement of the particular that goals comes around it. Strategic capabilities is your strength. Your strength. Your strength can be the resources, the activities, the process, uh, the principles that you follow, the ethics that you espoused upon. Business model is how product and services information flow in and around as on when on basis. This is what is required by the organization more often than not. Let us understand the control procedures, monitoring of the action step. Now, why this monitoring is to be done? Because we need to achieve that vision. Right, it's the vision that we need to go around it. The what is monitoring control is to be done because we need to achieve the goals, which can be fragmented into a part of an objectives, which is specific. So strategies and operations are organization wide as far as strategic management is concerned. But in operational management, what do we go around it? It is almost routine on a day-to-day basis. So strategies would be on a longer terms, operation on a day-to-day basis on a smaller term, conceptualizations of the issues, techniques and action that comes around it, creating new directions, managing existing resources thereby, developing new resources, operating within the existing strategies as on when on basis, ambiguous, uncertain, operationally specific, long-term and day-to-day issues that needs to be taken care of every time you want to come around it. That is what is a longish and a day-to-day issue that is there. Strategic management is understanding the strategic position of an organization, strategic choice, the future, and the turning strategies into action as we are looking forward towards it. This is what is being done. The scope of strategic management is greater than that of one area of operational management, as in what is good and how you want to proceed with it. Strategic management is concerned with the complexity arising out of ambiguous and non-routine situation with organization wide rather than the operation specific implication. That is what strategic management is all about. It the choices that we make around the scope which is to be decided upon and the concerns of the complexity as the case might be with the passage of time. So yes, let us have everything into action now, which is all about strategic positioning. Positioning is all about environment, your capability and the expectations of the purpose. Now this will tell me the position as to how which kind of business and how do I accomplish that business, what are the strengths and the weaknesses that has been there. Wherein strategic choices is nothing but business level strategies, the corporate level strategies, and the development of directions and methods. on a day-to-day basis. So these are the choices that becomes around it, be it corporate, be it business. Whereas strategies into action is managing the change, enabling and organizing. And this is what strategic into action is all about. It. Remember, this as a whole is a model of a strategic management. The strategic position, the strategic choice, and strategic into action. If you recollect it, and this comes around as strategic management and overall business. Let me give you two position of strategic, right? So number one is where the strategic position is concerned with the impact of strategy to the external environment. Remember, we're talking in terms of external environment. So it's an organization capabilities and expectation, influences from the stakeholders. This is of prime importance. Then comes the organization environment. What is an organization environment? We need to keep on asking ourselves. It is the pest or pestle, as you want to go around it. It is political, economical, social, technological, legal, and environmental. These are the environment under which an organization would have to compete, work around it. So there is a sources of competition. Definitely, yes, you cannot negate it. These sources of competition would always be existing. Opportunities and threats would be there definitely within an organization. Now, as a micro environment for Pestel, we have been trying to tell it to you, be it socio-cultural, economic, political, legal, environmental, or technological, everything impacts the organization. Now, which of these organization is affecting more? Is it socio-cultural? Is it political? Is it technical? In case if it is affecting in a detrimental way, align those ways, align those effect altogether. Which of this is most important? Now again, you prioritize which is most important and probably work upon it. Device method that things are going in your favor and you are not roughing um, anything in a wrong fashion. Let us visit the strategic positions too. As I said, it's the capabilities of the organization. Now, what are the capabilities? It is your resources. Now, resources can be men, material, and money. The competencies can be your technical, it can be your know-how, it can be your skills. So these which you not to go around it. Expectations and purposes is the corporate governance that comes around every now and then with the passage of time. This is what we will be talk on a day-to-day basis, as the case might be. We have to make the stakeholders assemble all the time, every time, as the case might be, right? So this is we need to decide upon it. How do we go about the corporate bodies, the expectations thereby? We need to ensure that there is an ethics and culture that comes around it. Everything that has to be manipulated needs to be done. We have to ensure the sources of power and influences, as the case might be. How do you go about by the sources of power? What is actually going into you? What makes it click, and how does it go around? To have a wonderful association that can only be done if there is a proper purpose of mission objectives being clarified. So let us come to the strategic choices one by one, understand the level of future. Now this is where you need to understand as for what the future been holding upon altogether. Is it worth it? That is the question that comes around it every now and then. The options for developing strategies in terms of both directions and methods of developing. Let us visit the strategies into action. Strategies into action is concerned with ensuring that the strategies are working in practice. It should not be theoretical in nature. Believe me, there are many things which are theoretically very good, very much viable, very productive, actually vibrant. Actually, you feel energized when you look at it into the theory part. But when it comes to real life implementation, there are a lot of hiccups, and you suddenly realize this is practically impossible to implement. So remember, strategies into action is concerned with those strategies that are working in practice. Let us ensure the structuring the organization to support successful performances, which includes organization structures, which include organization processes, which includes the relationship that the organization maintains within the organization and outside the organization. So enabling success through the ways in which the separate resources areas have been worked around it. Managing the strategy is very often very challenging as it has been involved as on when on basis. Let us understand the process of strategy development. Most strategies, remember, are basically nothing but a combination of either intended, that was desired and during the planning stage or the conceptual stage, and there is an emergent process. When you come to implement this strategy, you will see things might not work or things work in a better way in a different fashion. So it is a combination of intended and emergent strategies, as the case might be, which we have already said it to you. Intended strategies are deliberate management intent, right? During the visionary stage, planning stage, or the conceptual stage. The emergent strategies develop out of social political process in and around the organization. As on when you was implementing the strategies, you realize suddenly that things might not be working as has been planned ideally. So there are many ways to look at strategies if you look into it. So design school states the strategy as the process of conception. Now remember, these are almost a chapters on them. So we would love to summarize those things for your understanding in this particular slide. So there is something called design. It says at the process of conception, you have to eliminate all kind of possibilities and ensure when you are implementing it, it is becoming error free. Whereas in the planning stage, school says it is a formal process. We can have the plan in places if and buts around. A lot of options that needs to be going around it. The positional school state, it's an analytical process. Now you are positioning your strategies vis-a-vis an ideal environment. It can be the niche environment that you're looking into it. It can be an isolated environment. It can be a mass environment also. Remember, the law of averages catches up in the mass environment. The entrepreneurial schools will be talking about the visionary process. The cognitive schools will tell you about the mental process altogether, as in what comes around it. The learning schools will tell about as on when on basis you start doing upon the work. You have a broad guidelines and you start implementing the work. And as you implement, you might see certain viabilities and certain things that might be impeding. Please navigate that process as on when on basis. The cultural school is the strategy formation and the collective process. The environmental schools as a reactive process, and the configuration school strategy formulations as a process of transformation, as the case might be. This is what we are looking forward. So three strategies lenses: new ideas, high innovations; conformity, low innovations; low rationality, and high rationality. That is all about ideas, design, and experiences, as the case might be. So new ideas, remember, this is ideas which has been meant on a plotted on a y-axis, and the rationality. When there are no ideas, you are going with the flow. Actually, what has been happening, it is your experiences that comes around it. But when you are toying up with an idea, but they are not very practical, it is almost an ideating stage only. Yes, definitely we are talking about flying cars at this point of time. Flying cars, now this is at an ideating stage because rationality doesn't make sense around it. Absolutely. But who knows, in another 50-60 years time, everybody will be having and owning a flying cars. That means we are actually having almost of a, like an aircraft to ourselves, and that with a nominal pocket allowances, pocket money that we are going around to purchase a car that goes around it. But then ideas which are probably highly rational, and the ideas are innovative, probably having cars which are not being utilizing the fuel purpose, the traditional fuels, the petroleum products which are finite in resources. Can we have certain cars which have infinite resources, or let's say from renewable energy that goes around it? Probably highly rational, probably up as of now. A little bit practicality has to be incorporated, and things are in design stage, and probably this will see the light of the day because of their high rationalities and innovations ideas around it. So we need to focus with the strategic lens. One is as a design we go around it, logical analytical processes with the passage of time. How do we go across? How do we improvise, as the case might be? We'll talk about the planned implementation process. Yes, definitely. Yes, we are looking into it. Top manager driven, as the case might be, doing every now and then. There might be strategies as an experiences. Now, if you remember the graph that I showed it to you by design, by experience, and by ideas as such. Adaptations of the past experiences or past strategies based upon our experiences altogether, influence taken for granted, as in the culture wise, as you look into it, bargaining and negotiating, as the case might be. Yes, let's say, what about the strategies and ideas? Remember the ideas and the rationality which we have plotted on X and Y axis in the previous graph. So when it is about ideas, it is all about diversity. It's all about variety for innovations. It's all about thinking out of the box. Emergent strategies within or around the organization, as the case might be. Now, this is where the top management has to create or nurture such kind of conditions to take place. Let us understand the drift. It is a situation when strategy progressively fails. Remember, the word is fails, progressively fails. So you initiate a journey with certain things in your mind, but as in the process of journey, you actually drift, actually fail, and reach a different destination, different objective to address the strategic positioning of an organization, and performances deteriorates. Absolutely, yes, that we goes around it. The organization undergoes a long process through a long period of creativity, continuity, strategies in which the strategy remain unchanged or change incrementally, which probably we don't realize. And by the time we realize, it becomes a little too late to go for a change, which leads to the strategic depth. It is followed by a period of flux, but with no clear direction, which leads to the transformational change in the direction of the strategies, as the case might be. Remember, this is what is the drift. The intended strategy was like this, as the case might be, from phase one to the cumulative changes of state. But as we go around it, we are positioning ourselves, and what happens is either we change, realize a lot of growth in a very short span of time, or we drift somewhere down the corners and we are going down altogether until and unless we rectify ourselves and go into the path. So that is what the irregular surface of punctured equilibrium, where punctured equilibrium is a tendency of the strategies to develop incrementally with periodic transformation changes, as the case might be. This is what needs to be taken into understanding before you go in your practice. So be there. The control, the strategic control has to be there, has to be put in place every now and then. With these few words, I would love to wind up this particular presentation. Thank you for watching this video.